Ava Reynolds sat in the back of room 108, her notebook stained with raindrops and the spiral edges bent from being shoved too many times into her worn-out backpack. Her clothes were secondhand, her shoes 2 sizes too big, and her science project, a strange-looking bundle of wires, soda bottles, and aluminum foil, sat beside her like a wounded animal. You could hear the snickers from across the classroom. "Looks like she built that thing out of trash," whispered Kendra Mallory, the principal's daughter and queen of the school's science elite. Mr. Brody, the science teacher with a soft spot for kids with connections, barely glanced at Ava's project as he called the next name. "Kendra Mallory, please present your entry, Quantum Soil Nutrients and Climate Responsive Crops." The class erupted in polite applause. Kendra strutted to front, her white lab coat spotless, her poster professionally printed. Meanwhile, Ava's was handwritten, the ink smudged in places from rain. But Ava didn't flinch. When it was her turn, she walked to the front with that crooked, quiet confidence that only comes from surviving more than a kid ever should. She cleared her throat and said, "This is a low-cost, solar-powered water filtration device made from recyclable materials. It's designed to provide clean drinking water in underserved communities where power and infrastructure are unstable." Kendra scoffed loud enough for the whole room to hear. "So, a soda bottle and duct tape? You really think that's science?" The class burst into laughter. Even Mr. Brody smirked. But Ava didn't crack. Her hands trembled slightly as she demonstrated how dirty water entered the system and came out the other end clear. She passed it to Mr. Brody. "Test it. That's drinkable." He didn't. He just nodded dismissively and said, "Thank you, Ava. Let's move on." When the local science fair results were posted the next week, Kendra had taken first place. Ava didn't even make the finalist list. She tore her name off the bottom of the results sheet, stuffed it into her backpack, and walked home in silence. That night, she sat with her mother, who worked 2 jobs and still barely made rent, tweaking her design under the flicker of a dim lamp. "We might not have much," her mother said, running a hand through Ava's hair, "but you've got that fire. Don't let anyone blow it out." 3 months later, a professor from the local community college, who had seen Ava's demo video on an obscure student showcase site, reached out. He was impressed. "I shared your design with some colleagues. There's a global youth science summit coming up. Full scholarship, all expenses paid. You'll be presenting to scientists, engineers, and global leaders. Interested?" Ava thought it was a prank at first, but when she stepped off that plane in Geneva, Switzerland, wearing the same hoodie she'd worn 100 times, dragging a suitcase that barely zipped closed, it all became real. The other contestants had teams, managers, sponsors. Ava had her idea, her courage, and her mother's words in her chest like armor. And when she presented her device on the world stage, when the translator repeated her words into 6 languages, and the room went silent except for the sound of her demonstration filter running, clear water dripping steadily into a glass, she saw it. People weren't laughing. They were listening. Some were crying. And when the awards were handed out and the envelope opened, the man at the podium smiled and said, "Winner of the 47th Global Sustainability Youth Award, Ava Reynolds." Thunderous applause. A standing ovation. The next day, headlines ran with teen from underfunded school wins Global Tech Prize. Her device was scheduled for pilot deployment in 3 countries. Back in her high school, Mr. Brody read the news article with a stunned face. Kendra ripped the page out of the paper in the office and threw it in the trash. But when Ava returned, walking through those school doors with reporters waiting outside and the mayor planning a recognition assembly, the tables had turned. Mr. Brody approached her nervously. "Ava, I must have underestimated your project. We'd like you to speak at our next STEM Expo. It would be an honor." Ava tilted her head. "Funny, you didn't want me to speak last time. Maybe now I'm just more palatable?" He chuckled awkwardly. "Well, people grow. We learn." She leaned in. "Then let me teach you something. Never measure potential by the price tag on someone's shoes." The camera flashes caught her smile as she walked past him, head held high. But just as she was about to enter her next class, a hand slipped a note into her locker. It read, "You don't know who you just embarrassed. Watch your back." The paper wasn't signed. Her eyes scanned the hallway. Kendra was talking to someone in a dark suit by the principal's office. And just like that, the applause faded and the real fight began. The note burned in Ava's palm like a spark waiting for dry leaves. She read it twice more. You don't know who you just embarrassed. Watch your back. She glanced down the hall again. Kendra still stood by the principal's office, whispering to a tall man in a sleek navy suit, his back turned. When he turned slightly, Ava caught a glimpse of the gold pin on his lapel, District School Board. Ava stuffed the note into her pocket and kept walking, but her mind raced. That night, at home, she showed her mom the note. Her mom's jaw tightened. "Don't let fear rob you of your power," she said, but her voice quivered. "We'll handle this smart. Quiet strength, remember?" The next day, things got strange. Her locker was jammed shut with superglue. Her project files gone from her school laptop. The student news team canceled their interview due to pressure from administration. Mr. Brody suddenly stopped speaking to her altogether. Ava kept her head down, but behind her quiet stare, the wheels were spinning, and she wasn't alone. The professor who had helped her enter the global competition, Dr. Nair, called with urgency in his voice. "Ava, did you give anyone else access to your prototype schematics?" "No." "Why?" "There's a patent filed yesterday. Same design, different name, Kendra Mallory." Ava nearly dropped the phone. Her voice cracked. "What?" Dr. Nair was already steps ahead. "I'm contacting the summit board and my legal team. We're not letting this slide. But you need to be careful, Ava. You embarrass people with power. And people like that retaliate." It all made sense now. The sudden interest in her locker, the files wiped, the threats. Kendra didn't just want to humiliate her. She wanted to erase her. Ava sat alone in the library that afternoon, staring at a printed copy of the patent form. There was in bold, "Invention, low-cost soil filtration unit for displaced populations. Applicant, Kendra Mallory." She should have broken down, but instead, she got up. That fire her mom always talked about, it was roaring now. By the end of the week, Ava had collected every hand-drawn schematic she had ever made, time-stamped emails with Dr. Nair, voice memos, even an old video of her building the device in her garage, dated months before Kendra ever saw it. She submitted them to the International Award Committee, the patent office, and, most importantly, a young investigative journalist in a local paper named Zion Ray, who just happened to owe her mom a favor. 3 days later, the headline broke. Teen scientist invention stolen by school board insider's daughter. Evidence of cover-up emerges. The story went viral overnight. Zion included pictures, quotes, legal documents, and Ava's original demo video, played side by side with Kendra's sudden miraculous invention. The backlash was swift. Parents demanded accountability. Board members distanced themselves. Mr. Brody? He was placed on leave. And Kendra? She didn't show up to school that Monday. But Ava did. As she walked down the hall, students clapped, not mockingly, not out of obligation. Real, stunned respect. Some even apologized. And when she reached her locker, fixed this time, freshly painted, there was another note, but this one wasn't a threat. It was an invitation from the United Nations. You've been selected to join the Global Youth Tech Coalition. Meet with world leaders. Present your work. Help implement it across refugee zones. She showed her mom that night, who read it silently before tears spilled down her cheeks. You changed the world with a soda bottle in your brain, baby. But even as joy surged through the Reynolds household, a dark shadow loomed. Ava's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. You think this is over. Ava, that story you exposed was just the surface. You don't know who Kendra's father really works for. And you just painted a target on your back. Click. Silence. Her hands shook as she lowered the phone. Her mom saw her face and said, "What is it?" Ava didn't answer right away. She walked to a window. Outside, a black SUV sat idling across the street. Unmarked. No plates. Ava didn't sleep that night. The voice on the phone echoed in her ears like a warning too calm to ignore. You don't know who Kendra's father really works for. The SUV outside idled for hours, then disappeared sometime before dawn. But that silence felt louder than the threat. The next morning, Ava's mother insisted she stay home. But Ava shook her head. If I hide now, they win. She walked into school with her chin high, but her eyes stayed sharp, scanning every hallway, every unfamiliar face. Something felt off. Her classmates avoided eye contact. Whispers followed her like shadows. Even the teachers seemed more tense than usual. And then, the final blow, Mr. Jenkins, the assistant principal, pulled her out of homeroom. "I'm sorry, Ava," he said, eyes flicking away. "There's been a ruling from the district. Effective immediately, you're suspended, pending an investigation into academic dishonesty and public defamation." Ava blinked. "What?" "That's a lie. I proved everything." He handed her a letter, signed by Superintendent Charles Mallory, Kendra's father. This wasn't about school policy. This was retaliation. Ava stood frozen, the letter crumpling in her hand. Jenkins leaned in and whispered, "There's more going on here than you know. Be careful, Ava." That night, she met with Zion Ray at a diner off the highway. He looked tired, nervous. "I dug deeper," he said, glancing around before sliding a folder across the table. "Kendra's dad, Charles Mallory, he's not just a school board official. He's tied to a private contractor that profits off keeping tech like yours out of refugee zones." Ava's breath caught. Zion continued, "If your filter tech spreads, they lose billions in bottled water and emergency aid contracts. They're scared of you. That's why they're coming so hard." The folder was full of documents, emails, internal memos, fake patent registrations, even a list of student inventions quietly shelved over the years. Ava wasn't the first. She was just the loudest. Zion sighed. "But now you've got their attention, and they don't play fair." That night, Ava got another call. This time, the voice was different. A woman. "We believe you, Ava, and we want to help." The woman introduced herself as Agent Marina Vale, U.S. Department of Educational Integrity. She'd read Zion's article, seen Ava's interview, and she had one question. "Are you ready to take this national?" Ava hesitated. "They already suspended me. They're trying to destroy me." Marina replied, "That's because you become a threat to their entire system. But we've been watching the Mallory network for years, and you just gave us the crack we needed." The next day, Ava met with Marina in secret. She arrived in a long olive green coat, eyes sharp, voice low. "This isn't just about a science project anymore. It's about corruption, money, and silencing genius in our communities." Marina handed Ava a thumb drive. "Inside is everything we've gathered, names, transactions, suppression tactics. You go public with this, you'll blow it wide open. But once you do, there's no going back." Ava stared at the drive. It felt heavier than any award. Later that week, she stood on a stage at the Global Youth Tech Summit in Geneva, introduced not just as a finalist, but as a voice the world needed to hear. She told her story. She showed her invention. She played the audio of Kendra laughing, of the threats, of the stolen patent. And then she dropped the bomb, the Mallory file. The room fell silent. The fallout was immediate. Charles Mallory was subpoenaed. Mr. Brody was permanently removed. Kendra vanished from social media. And Ava? She got standing ovations, interviews, scholarships. But even as the world praised her, Ava couldn't shake the feeling she was being watched. One night, back home in her garage, she found the door open. Inside, her prototype, the very first version of her solar filter, was gone. In its place, a single Polaroid photo. It showed a man she'd never seen, standing in front of a factory marked with her design. On the back was a message in bold red ink. "You just disrupted a billion-dollar industry. You ready to see how deep this goes?" Ava's hands trembled. She wasn't afraid. She was ready. Ava stared at the photo in her trembling hand. The mystery man, the factory, her design. That wasn't just theft, it was escalation. Someone had taken her idea global, without her name, without her permission. But the red ink message on the back said it all. You just disrupted a billion-dollar industry. You ready to see how deep this goes? She didn't sleep. Not that night. Not the next. By morning, Marina Vale was at her doorstep. Not smiling. Not surprised. She held up the photo without a word. Ava nodded slowly. You knew this might happen. Marina's voice was low and grim. We knew it would. Inside the car was someone Ava never expected. Councilman Ryerson. Black suit, gold tie pin, eyes like steel. He looked her over once, then said, You think what you did in Geneva was brave, but that stage, that was just your audition. Ava blinked. Audition for what? He handed her a folder marked Project Silencer. Inside were reports, names, case files. Children like her, bright minds silenced, bought off, or buried in legal threats. Ava's stomach turned as she saw them. Young inventors from poor neighborhoods whose ideas had disappeared into private labs, military contractors, and black market tech firms. A pattern, a system. Marina folded her arms. You just exposed one head of a hydra. This, she tapped the folder. This is a body. Ava looked between them. Fire building behind her eyes. Then let's cut off the whole damn beast. Ryerson gave the faintest smile. That's the answer I hope you'd give. Over the next 3 months, Ava's life changed. She disappeared from social media. Her name faded from headlines. But behind closed doors, she worked with Ryerson's task force, Marina's federal team, and Zion Ray, who now hosted a weekly podcast called Hidden Geniuses. They exposed company after company, patent after patent, all built on the backs of forgotten kids. Ava didn't just take down corrupt educators. She helped dismantle an entire underground pipeline profiting off stolen innovation. And when the media tried to spin it, make it about politics, about race, about conspiracy, Ava didn't flinch. She walked onto live television with a single line that silenced the world. The only thing more dangerous than a poor kid with an idea is a system that's afraid of what happens when they're heard. The clip went viral, but Ava didn't bask in it. She stayed moving, stayed fighting. By year's end, she'd helped launch the Youth Intellectual Property Defense Act, backed by Ryerson, Marina, and a dozen new allies. She founded her own institute, the Ava Cole Initiative, providing legal protection and funding to young inventors from low-income communities. But the threats didn't stop. One night, just before the new year, Ava returned home to find her mother sitting in the dark, pale and shaking. She held up a letter. No return address. Inside, just a photo of Ava walking out of a courthouse, crossed out in red marker. And beneath it, a single line. Next time, we come for the roots. Ava clenched her jaw. She stood taller. She walked to her desk, opened her drawer, and pulled out a second prototype. One no one knew about. One she'd never shared. She whispered to herself, then it's time they see what happens when the roots fight back. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And let's keep the conversation going.